All right, welcome back. If you are new here to the channel, this is Joe and Jay Outspoken. If you have been here before, thanks for coming back. And today's episode is going to be an interesting one because both Joe and I have watched a recent movie called Mary on Netflix, and neither one of us have shared our views on the movie together. So this is going to be raw and uncensored. All right, Joe?
Not that it's not ever, but a lot of times we'll talk about it. We're like, well, what'd you think? And, not that we change each other's minds, but I think today I just kind of wanted to be like, oh, really? Is that where kind of like, either be shocked or not? You know what I mean? Like,
we normally have a little precursoring before we get into it, but not this time.
No, not today. Not today.
Not today. All right. Well, let's get into this.
All right, let's do it.
Here we go with a little, I don't know if would we call this a critique?
No, I more of a review.
Just a
more
discussion, a review.
Just a discussion of what we think. We saw we're in the season. There's a reason for this season, right? And it's you get a lot of, and here, don't get me wrong, I love the direction that we're kind of going. It looks like everyone's going to Christianity. They're starting to believe in a little bit of what's been out there for the beginning of our known time. So it's great to see. But are we in danger in losing the known biblical canon to some apocryphal version? So this is what intrigued me to do this podcast was I want to see this. Is it, again, biblically correct, or is it apocryphal of a gospel that wasn't included in the Bible's original canon?
Correct.
Okay, so that's what intrigued me. Beautiful story, right? Because we know part of that story, right? The birth of Christ, the three wise men, the king executing all the firstborn, and then some, right? So we know part of this biblical story that was presented by Netflix. But here's the thing. Did we know the story of Mary? And where did they get it? Because the Bible is very vague on that. It just speaks about, her being a virgin and, being the chosen one to bring forth our Lord and Savior, correct? Where did they get this? Where did this come from? Where was the story of Mary? So I might mess this up. I can't really say these words, but I think it's called the Proto-Evangelium of James, or in other words, the Gospel of James.
They call it the Proto-Gospel is the short word for it. Yeah.
So in my review and studying this comes from, again, the Gospel of James, which is what is known in the theological world as a apocryphal, right? Which is not part of the canon of the Bible, right? And I guess they found a lot of inconsistencies, things like that. They don't even know if James really wrote it, but it has a whole different meaning to what the known Bible is. So to me, again, great story, right? Is a great story, but it's kind of like, there's a part in the Bible where it says you don't take or add to the Bible, right? Or to the Word of God. So where does this stand on that? Like, how, like, again, it's hard for me to think that there was a group of elders that got together and say, well, we're going to pick this gospel. We're going to pick this book. We're not going to add this book. To us from the outside, we think like, oh man, they were just in there saying, it doesn't believe what we believe. Let's click it out. Right. But they were comparing it to writings that were there, right? That were historically correct. And they were, because think about it. How many people here now have redone the Bible? The Jehovah's Witnesses have done it. The Mormons have it with the Book of Mormon. They've reworded it to fit their description of what it translates to. There's been so many things. So it's only fair to think that the same thing was done back in those times, right? That people were believing their own thing, or they're trying to mesh, maybe Roman gods to the biblical aspect of it and try to make it a new gospel. And there was just so many stuff that was happening back there, and it was hard to prove or disprove who wrote it. The only way they could do that is compare it to previous writings of either that apostle or other apostles that are known
Right.
apostles of Jesus. So I guess this one just wasn't really, part of that, because it was, it's gone by different names. It was called the Birth of Mary, the Infancy Gospel of James. There was just so many names to this book.
Right.
And it was a second century, what they call infancy gospel. Again, I don't know. I want to hear your opinion. Again, there's so much about the Gospel of James that I want to talk about, but I want to know about overall your view on that movie.
First thing I'd like to say is I think the movie was great. The depiction that they did of her was really good. Now, there was quite a bit of Hollywood embellishment. They have her in one of the scenes. And if you please understand, if you haven't seen the movie, there's probably going to be some spoilers we'll give out in here. So one of the scenes, is when that house is on fire, and she's on horseback and they like ride through the flames and everything. Stuff like that is definitely embellished, right? There's no factual evidence of any kind for that happening. So now, to go back on what Joe's talked about, the original biblical canon of the Gospels has mention of Mary in it, right? The first time we hear about Mary is in the third book of the New Testament, and it's in Luke 1:26. And in the 6th month, the angel Gabriel was sent from God into the city of Galilee named Nazareth to a virgin espoused to a man whose name was Joseph of the house of David. And the virgin's name was Mary. So that was the first time she was mentioned anywhere in the Bible. Now, the director of the movie used, obviously from that point on in the Gospels, right, to kind of see how her life was and who she was, and interpreted that backwards. So like reversed engineered the story, right? So like Joe said, they used what was called the proto-gospels of James. But another set of writings that was used was the ancient Jewish historian Josephus, is where he got a lot of the more childhood. The whole movie, the whole basis of it was to show the underrepresented sources of Mary's birth and childhood, right?
Yeah.
And so we don't really know any of that, truly.
No.
And the whole purpose of this whole thing for us doing this is to say that, listen, it was a great movie and it's very inspirational. And I agree 110% with Joe on the whole thing, that I'm so happy to see this in the limelight more. What's crazy is to see the critics come out after it, wanting to put it down, saying that, it's whether they are Christians saying it's blasphemous, right? Or they are non-Christians saying it's just a bunch of conservatives trying to build, more on the, what'd you call it? Like the hierarchy of man and everything, and which we know that existed through time. They can't shut up about it nowadays, that women are still, under a man's foot all the time, kind of thing. So the thing is that back in those days, it was believed that the man was in charge of the farm or the home or what have you, and the female was in charge of the bearing of the children and raising them properly, in the home. And they tried to meld all of this together to do the story of Mary. Again, let me ask you this, scored a 1 to 10. What would you give it on just a movie scale? Forget for a second that we're Christians and that we're looking at it from a biblical perspective.
Blasphemous. Forget that we're Christian.
That's the most blasphemous. You know what else is blasphemous?
God.
Good morning.
Hey, good morning. But so I'm going to give you, so as a movie, I think it was a great movie. I enjoyed it. So it was like, you remember back then, the shows, I know
I
you
don't
remember
remember back then. I wasn't born then. So.
Not that back then, but back in the day
ain't that old, Joe. I ain't that old.
Back in the day when during the holidays, right after Thanksgiving, we'd start seeing Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, Santa Claus is coming to town, the claymation cartoons, remember? They're awesome. Yeah. So to me, I saw that as one of those feel-good movie about Christmas, right? To me, I enjoyed the movie. It was good. I enjoyed it. But what I don't want people to take away from this is that we as Christians, we follow a very strict canon, and that's the Bible. To me, that is important. For entertainment value, great. But the problem is when you start believing in these things and then doubting, that's the biggest, threat to Christianity. We have a faith system that we believe in, and the doctrines there. Now, there's a reason I feel that some of these very important people in Christianity are vaguely spoken about. And that for me is because the main character of the Bible is who?
Well, Jesus.
Correct. That is the main character in the Bible in the New Testament, right?
In the New
We have the
Testament,
Old
yeah, we should say.
Testament that was preparing us
Right.
for him, and now we have him in the New Testament, right? So that is the main character. That's the lead character. That's who's in charge, and that's what it's all about. They're mentioned, and to me, trust me, this is to me, it would be a great honor that you're even mentioned in the Bible, right? So Mary has to be mentioned because she's the Holy Mother, right? She brought forth Jesus. Remember, I was raised Catholic, so we honor Mary. It's a big celebration, La Virgen de Guadalupe, and whatnot. But kind of goes
Say that
against,
3 times fast.
I know, right? But that kind of still goes against what we believe in Christianity, right? We only pray to our God. So it was a great movie. I enjoyed it. It was a good Christmas time movie, a real feel good movie. But there's just so many things that if you start absorbing it, you start questioning things like Joseph. Joseph was just a guardian, according to this movie. He wasn't like a husband. He wasn't just a guardian who lived with Mary to make her pregnancy legal. It even pointed to the fact that they casted lots, right? Kind of like a lottery to pick Joseph,
Right.
and to me, that was like, do we want to go that route? It's a good story, right? So it's not like I sit here and watch a Lion King and think that these lions really talk and, they got Pumbaa out there and doing all these great things. I mean, it's a movie. Do you know what I'm saying? I think it's a great story. I think it's a good feel-good story. I think at the end, the coming of Christ, I think the birth of Christ that's a great story. And, it was true, it's all about love. We change the world with love, right? Because that was ultimately God's ultimate commandment, right? Or Jesus' commandment. So I just worry again because, when we have, and this is just strictly religiously speaking, when we have movies like this, people then start believing or want to believe these truths. They start questioning things, and that's when doubt comes into your mind. And that's when, as Christians, we need to be firm. We need to stand firm in what we believe in and what's in the doctrine of the Bible. And
Right.
That's my point. I think that the Gospel of James was really like focusing on Mary's perpetual virginity, because also they were speaking that, their belief in the Gospel of James is that she was a virgin before, after, and during and after Jesus' birth, which means they're not brothers. That James wasn't really his brother, but like a cousin. You know what I mean? If she maintained virginity, we don't know that. It wasn't in the Bible. The Bible only says that when she conceived Jesus, she was a virgin.
Correct.
Right. So those things kind of worry me, and
just now it's a lot of speculation, right?
Correct. And it's off.
I mean,
so again,
we can speculate. So what do you believe, like, as far as we know from the Bible, what would you believe is, so this whole movie was about Mary. You want somebody that's even more vague, but a very important figure was Joseph.
Yeah.
There's hardly anything, right?
Correct.
There's very little to know about him. I would say that Jesus was born of a virgin. So Mary was a virgin until his birth. Now, Joseph was, what do they call it, betrothed or whatever, to Mary, his being like her guardian or whatever you want to say, you had said earlier. Once the angel came and spoke to him, he now believed, and he did marry Mary, right? He married Mary. Now, in my belief, I would say that once Jesus was born and everything was going on, it doesn't say anywhere in the Bible that she needed to remain a virgin from that point on, right?
No, only for his conception and his birth.
Correct. So I would believe that
it didn't make her a bad person.
Imagine it. So one of two things would have happened with this, right?
Yeah.
If we'd again, speculating, okay, none of this is biblical or anything like that. But if you fast forward to today's times and you heard that, you'd be like, come on, give me a break.
Yeah.
This sounds like this was a holiday party or something that went wrong or something. Literally. So imagine after Jesus is born and they both see the beauty of not only, just forget again all the biblical stuff for 2 seconds, just this beautiful baby they have, right? And now they start to see Jesus doing things and being the Son of God, right? And imagine how the miracle of all of that would make them fall even more in love. You can't think,
or even the trials that were
that's the thing.
Forth, you know what I mean?
Imagine a man that would stand by his female through all of these things.
Yeah.
Because
I mean,
he could
there's a
have just
lot.
walked away and said,
Oh, yeah.
man, I'm going to go be a sheep herder and
Yeah.
be done with all this.
But he went from town to town trying to protect her and the unborn Jesus, and there was so much going on, right? And come on, to cast a lot and say, hey, all right, dude, I guess I got the lucky rock and I got picked. To me that's so far fetched. But again, it's in that canon, the Gospel of James. But like this whole thing about her living in a temple, sewing that thing for the temple, the Satan appearing, there's just like none of that's in the Bible. Not even like anywhere,
and that
anywhere.
That comes back to the Hollywood embellishment. It's just like what I just said right now. Sounds reasonable, right? She would birth Jesus, and then afterwards, her and Joseph would end up having other children, right? We don't know that, though. Your theory could also be correct. She could have remained a virgin her entire life because of being so devout to Christ, and the word and everything. See, Joseph disappears kind of early, right?
Yep.
In the story. Another historical figure that we don't truly know what happened to him. Did he die of cancer? Did he get eaten by wolves? Somebody stabbed him to death? All these kind of things.
And I hate to say this, and it sounds very bad, but they're not the main characters of the story, right?
And you're 100% correct.
And they played a role, an important, significant role. Yeah. They were mentioned in that significance of that role. And they're saints for all that we know for that. But that's it. Their story ended. And it ended for a reason, because the main character is now in play. You know what I'm saying? And to me, that we cannot forget that. We can't allow Hollywood to influence us into these different views or their hypothesis on what Mary's life was. We should just accept it for what it is. As a movie, great. I loved it. It was a good movie. It's like I enjoyed The Grinch, like I enjoyed, watching all these other Christmassy movies. It was a great movie, very inspirational. I love the way it spoke to the birth of Jesus, the three wise men, the North Star, that, of course, King Herod, and all those terrible things that happened, which are biblically correct. But just the rest of it, just kind of, I don't want to get too focused on that, because again, it takes away from the movie. I think the movie was a good movie. Again, I say that it was great that we see these type of movies coming out more and more. Now, would I prefer a little bit more accuracy? Yes. But I think if we create movies that were more significant as to the moment, like we could make a great movie from the moment when the angel appeared to Mary and told her about, the birth of Jesus to his birth. Look at Mel Gibson with Passion of the Christ. In just a very short period of time, he created a phenomenal movie, right?
Yeah.
And it was just just a little short part. It didn't talk about a lot. It was just a little short part. It starts off with him praying. Of course, his apostles keep falling asleep on him. So he took it from that point to where it went, and like he told a great story.
Yeah.
In just that little portion.
I still can't watch that movie anymore.
You know what?
That's a movie to watch,
bro. I hate to get off subject, but when I'm telling you, when I have, not that I have doubts, but when I feel like I'm separating myself, or I need to watch that movie. Because let me tell you, when you see that movie, and I feel even then it was a little on the light side, because I feel back then the Romans were harsh, bro. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They were throwing people in pits with lions,
right,
for entertainment. You know what I mean? Yeah. So to me, I think he was still on the soft side. But to think that he went through all that for us, it kind of puts things into perspective. Like, bro, you're complaining about not enough sleep. Get out of here. Get out of here. You know what I mean? You're complaining about your back hurting, bro. You're alive, still over your 50s, and not in prison, and you have a little back pain. Take an Anacin and go to bed. Quit your crying, right? And so it puts things into perspective. So I enjoy watching it. But you are correct. That's a very hard movie to watch. But I think that the director, the creators of Mary, could have done a great job in just that little period, that little era, that would have been more accurate. Hollywood does what Hollywood does. They embellish these stories. They make them so fantastic. And again, that's just bordering that worry for me as Christians. Now, as a Christian, would I recommend a movie? Yeah, watch a movie. It's a great movie. But don't fall into that rabbit hole, right? When you start questioning things, you start looking for things, and you start looking for answers, and because then you start creating doubt. You start having these moments of doubt, and that's not a good thing. Right, we should never have doubt in what it is. Again, it's a good movie. I think there's some great acting in there. They picked, I think, the main Mary. I think she's Israeli, from what I was reading.
Yeah, and this really fits into today's timeline of things, because she was portraying somebody that would be like in the Palestinian side of things, right? So,
Yeah.
when you start thinking about Jesus came to be, he wasn't born into a bloodline of kings, right? He wasn't in a castle. He wasn't, he was born in a barn.
Well,
When he rode in, when he was older, when he rode into the city, what did he ride in on? A donkey,
donkey.
right? Not a horse. And the whole purpose behind this was to show that he's the king of everything, but he doesn't need to wear a crown to prove that, right? Doesn't have to have a purple robe and
But it's also to
gold
fill the
and
prophet.
everything.
It's also to
Complete the prophecies from the Old Testament. Right, exactly. The proto-gospel that he used and then the writings from Josephus, we could say, well, you're using a lot of that kind of
It's just
stuff.
a funny name.
Josephus,
I'm
yeah.
gonna change my name to Josephus. What up, Josephus?
I'm naming my next dog Josephus.
Joseph.
So too many syllables to call.
Joseph.
But they found in the pottery here not too long ago, what was called now the Book of Enoch, right? And that's not included in the Bible.
No.
And there's a lot of writings in there that are things that are really interesting. There's some similarities and then some things that, obviously were not included in the Bible. Just like you said in the beginning of this, a lot of those things are not necessary, right? To explain to people. Just like you said, once Joseph's story was over, it was over.
Yeah.
It wasn't needed anymore because,
it sounds harsh, but you're right.
It does. But you know what? Think about, and you've heard it in movies and in historical books, the names of kings, the names of famous people, they're in history books. The average person that did all the stuff to get the king to that position, their names are lost to time, right?
Correct.
So their stories weren't as important and as
like the guy who built the Colosseum is not as important as the king who said, "Build me the Colosseum."
That's correct.
You're right.
That's a great, perfect example of it. And if you did a genealogy of any important person, why are you doing that genealogy? Because they are an important person. We don't do genealogy on average people, right? Nobody cares what their bloodline is, but everybody cares what, the king or the ruler or whatever it was. To go back on your whole thing, yeah, I agree. I think the movie was great. Yeah, did it have Hollywood embellishments? Absolutely. We have to be careful, just like you said, of taking the literalness out of all of these things. So I'll give you a great example. Most people that I know that are Christians and really good Christians, even in our church, in our church, what do they have up in the church right now? They have Christmas trees.
Christmas trees. Yeah.
Yeah. What are Christmas trees supposed to be based off of? Paganism, right? So here's my thing to that. If you put up a Christmas tree and you were kneeling down in front of it and bowing to it and praying to it as a pagan structure, then yeah, you shouldn't be having that up, right? That would be anti-Christian. A tree up in celebration of the birth of Christ has nothing to do with a pagan worship thing. Whether that's where it truly came from history, Google it, look it up. There's 15 different versions of how a Christmas tree became a thing. We did in our Halloween special, how all that came about, and they used gourds, and then pumpkins just became the thing because you know why? They're usually the roundest, the bigger ones. They're cool looking. They used all kinds of gourds and stuff. And why did they do that? Was because
it's fall and festive.
It's all fun, yeah.
But I agree with you, Jay, on that 100%. I think that, and we're very clear on symbolism, right, in Christianity, right? And I don't think that a tree is a symbol of anything other than putting presents underneath it, right? And lighting it up and making it look really pretty. I think I see that as a decoration. Like me. For me, it's almost blasphemous now to have these guys up here. My Dallas Cowboys are doing so horrible, but I don't bow to them or honor them. In fact, I curse them, but that's besides the point. But again, to me, it's just like part of a decoration of a home or whatnot. When we forget what the meaning is behind the celebration, that's when it starts falling into paganism and things like that, right? We need to understand the reason for the season, right? And as long as we're following that, I think that's great. So what I've seen a lot now in the tickety talk is that people are going away from Christmas trees and they're creating these crosses with wreaths on them and they put lights on them and garland and they put all kinds of things. And
I've seen that.
That was genius. Whoever started I like it. Maybe they felt, hey, a Christmas tree, I feel like, kind of like you said, maybe they feel like it was a paganism and they're like, let's do a cross instead. And that's fine. I think, again, we can't, these are just things that happen, like Thanksgiving. No one says we have to eat turkey, but that's what traditionally we eat, right?
Right.
Is turkey. I'd like a nice little cheeseburger myself on Thanksgiving, but it is what it is.
We're
The
doing
kids
ribeye Thanksgivings from now on.
little ribs, but as a tradition, something that I want my children to pass on to their families when they have their families. It's a good old Thanksgiving tradition. Invite your brothers and your sister and enjoy that time together. The point isn't the turkey. The point is that time together and giving thanks to God for family, for blessings, for everything, right? That's the purpose, not the turkey,
Yeah.
And I think when we start taking that meaning away is crazy. Like, back on the subject, it's understandable to be curious about details of Jesus and Mary, right? Because for a time we didn't know what happened to Jesus, right? When he was, was last time we heard was he was in the temple like 7 or 8 years old, right? And then after that, not again till like 33. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
So there was a lot. What happened there? Where are the details? People are curious, and I think imaginative speculation may be harmless, to me, like they did in this movie. I think it's unacceptable though to present speculation as fact. That's where we start getting into these little.
Right. I totally agree with that. Yeah.
So again, there's nothing wrong in having a little imaginative speculation as long as it's not in a derogatory way. I think it's harmless. It's when you start making it fact, even for yourself. When you start looking at something, it's like, oh my God, that's truth. No, we recommend you grab your Bible, read it, and find the truth, because the truth is in there, right? That's all you need to know. But no, I agree 100% with what you're saying. I think so. What I'm hearing here, Jay, what I'm hearing, if I'm not that old and still able to understand my best friend here, is that you enjoyed the movie as well.
I did. It was very well done. Again, there's a lot of embellishments, that were done in there. And, historically through time, what writings do we have about what would happen to a woman that
Correct
is having a child out of wedlock? Just say it that way, right? Because again, we're looking at it from the biblical storyline. The average person at that time, would not care about it being a deity of any kind, right? They would care that a female is having a child out of wedlock. You just don't do that, right? So
Moses' law.
And so how would society and the people of society at that time, how would they have treated it? I don't think it's too far off to suggest that that's how things would have been and how it would have been for her and her trials and tribulations that she would have had to gone through. And then again, having this guy Joseph come into the story, I think 90% of what they put in the story for him in the movie is, well, it's all embellishment, right? Because there's not enough factual evidence on
an angel appearing and saying, hey, go down the river more. Check it out. See what you like.
Yeah. And then he sees her across the river or the stream or whatever, It's like, so a lot of that stuff was just kind of Hollywoodized, And again, like you said, like I believe we are both agreeing on, I don't really have a problem with that. Just knowing that stuff is all drummed up just to add to, like you said, the length of the movie. Because if you're to do an entire 2-hour movie, right, on somebody's 3 to 6 months worth of life, well, that's kind of easy to fill that movie up, because that time, just like you said in the Bible that explains about Jesus when he's 33, there's a lot of history in that 1 year, call it 2 years worth of time, right? So you can fill a 2-hour plus movie with that.
Correct.
If you're going to try, just like you said earlier, again, if you're going to try to fill it from his birth till when he turns 33, there's going to be a lot of gap in there that you're going to have to make up some stuff and put some Hollywood flair into it to show him growing up and all those kind of things. And what did happen? I mean, the kids that he played with, you imagine from the time he was birthed till the time of his crucifixion and resurrection, he was a child for many years. Yeah. What was his interaction with those children? Who were those children? They're not written about in the Bible because they weren't an important part of the story. Now, were those children an important part of their families' lives? Absolutely. And who knows who their ancestors are to this day, right?
Correct.
And they could be living and not even know that their, great grandparents walked the sands of time with Jesus. It's kind of crazy to think about. Great story. Great storyline. Definitely, for hardcore Christians that are very strict with biblical things, you're not going to get a perfect biblical account. But I do believe that the things that they did show that were story based off of the Bible, they portrayed very well, in my opinion. I think all of that stuff was great. And again, the young girl that her last name's Cohen. I don't remember her first name.
Yeah, that's a Jewish last name.
Yeah. Anyhow, I thought she did a great job.
Yeah, no, she did an excellent job.
And then of course she had the amazing Anthony Hopkins in it, and he played
he played such a good role as King Herod, bro. He's so mean.
Yeah,
but
I think
that he brought that character like to life. I mean, to really think about that's how mean they were. You know what I mean?
Right.
And you know how he goes and he's like, yeah, I don't care. Put that up on your temple. That's what, it's my temple. You know what I mean? It's a good movie. So Siskel, what do you give it?
I'll give it an 8.
Yeah, well, I think Ebert gives it like an 8.5.
8.5. Right.
Again, I think it was a well done movie. As far as just a movie, I think it was a good movie. It was a good plot line. It told a good story. Ultimately, it did what we want people to know, is that the miraculous birth of Jesus Christ. The story of love. Because it really showed what Mary did. To protect the Savior, right, and to keep him. The story says keep him away from harm. Yeah. Of course, there was some help from angels and whatnot, right? But I think it was a good story. I think in a time where there's so much disarray in our society, I think stories like these are very significant.
Absolutely.
I think they really just humanize the Bible, because a lot of people just think like, yeah, it's a fairy tale, it's just way out there. But when you really see the life and struggles of people that existed, normal, everyday people, humans, to see what they did to be where we're at today, right? To build this such a huge Christian-based belief, it's a miracle in itself. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
So I personally think I give it an 8.5. I think it was a great movie. I think people should go out there and watch it. Again, don't speculate things and create factual elements from it. I think it's great to have a little imaginative speculation. Everybody wonders. Everybody has that thought, joy, that time, and just watch it for what it's worth. Kind of like, when you walk away from watching The Lion King, just know that lions really don't talk, and they would eat someone like Pumbaa,
right? Yeah,
not be friends with them. But again, it's a good movie. I enjoyed it, and I really hope they start making more movies that are more Christian based. And come on, guys, can we just get away from the whole politics things and stop saying, Christ doesn't belong to the conservatives. Christ is for everybody. So stop putting that out there, people. That's so annoying. It's like, oh, here come the Republicans or the conservatives with another. I feel like you guys are isolating yourself. This story is yours too, man. It ain't just ours. This is everybody's story. In fact, it's not even our story. It is what it is, man. And I think if people understood that, if people accepted more of these movies, more like instead of those Hollywood movies, kill, destroy, and more, I guess, felt heartedly movies, I think it'd be great. I think society could start healing, man. You guys are angry out there. You really are. Jesus.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I guess I'd leave it with this. So, it is a movie, and one of the things that I wouldn't doubt that they did was knowing that there would be controversy on this, and what did it do? It got this going right here.
People talking.
There's people talking about it. The other thing would be it being Hollywoodized is a great thing, because it actually gets people interested and curious, and maybe if it helps a dozen people, man, and they pick up a Bible and go, you know what, I want to see what this is all about, and figure it out. That's what it's all about, is getting people.
Yeah. And thank you, Anthony Hopkins, for playing a part in this, because that's telling Hollywood, like, hey, bros, we can't just be doing all these other movies. Let's. There's an audience for it. I'm telling you, there's an audience for this, and I hope they do more movies like this. I think it's great, especially those of you that are angry. A lot of anger up there. You know who you are.
Yeah.
But yep. That's our view. So guys, go out there and watch this movie. It's a great movie. I enjoyed it. Netflix, thank you for actually doing something like that.
Yeah.
Most of the times you find these only on like Angel, that
Angel Studios. Yeah.
Angel Studio. So.
Yeah. It was when the night we watched it, it was number 1 on Netflix most
nice. What month?
Recommended or watched movies or whatever. How they have number 1 through 10 for the week. Yeah, it was number 1. So that's says a lot. So
what mom think?
She liked it a lot. Yeah.
Good.
Same kind of thing as, some of it was a little bit little bit far-fetched as far as Hollywood-esque type stuff.
Yeah.
Maybe some of that stuff they could have pulled back a little bit on, but I don't think it was enough to detract or take away from the story.
Yeah.
So somebody that knows the Bible, it wouldn't be enough to take away from the actual story. And then somebody that doesn't know the Bible, I don't think it's enough to scare them away to think, oh my gosh, is this everything that happened? You know, I think it was a good mix. Could they
I
maybe
think
tweaked a couple things here and there? Yeah, maybe.
But here's the thing about that. It's so funny because I thought about that. It's like veterans of either World War II, of Desert Storm, whatever. They look at these movies that are like about those eras, and they're like, "Man, that's not even true. Like, get out of here. That didn't happen, right?" Or those cop movies that people see are like, "Bro, he didn't even do a proper search. That's not how you. That's not how you. You know,
he's walking in the room, he's flagging everybody. You know,
yeah, bro. That's
not
how
his finger on the trigger.
You don't breach a building like that. That's not how you do. You know, there's always going to be those.
Everybody's a critic.
Everybody's a critic. Everybody's doing it. But you know what? If we get away from that, let's just look at the story as far as like where it takes us at the moment. Not in a biblical way, but not in a Hollywood way, but just the story that we're watching at the moment. See where it takes us. If that draws you closer to being a Christian, if that draws you closer to reading the Bible, if that draws you closer to doing good, you know, because of what you saw, then it did its purpose, right?
That's right. That's right.
So yeah, I think it's really all I have to say about that. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you again for joining us for another episode. And this was a really great one. I'd like to do more on critiquing movies in the future.
I don't know if these heathens are ready for us, bro. I don't know if these heathens are ready, but we'll try it. We'll do it again.
We'll try it. Well, definitely join us next week for our next episode. And if you have not checked us out online already, we are at Linktree/Joe and J Outspoken. It's got all of our social media platforms, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, all of the above.
All of that.
We're even on Rumble and YouTube. So there's a couple episodes that we had that were scratched off of here because they were too controversial. So you will have to go check us out on Rumble.
And we're also on audio on Apple. And
we're on all the podcast platforms. So I think
we're on feetfinder.com as well. I think we're on there.
This was not the episode to do that.
Cut that one out.
Yeah, thanks for joining us today. Make sure you take care of one another.
Remember to do better and be better.
And as always,
God bless America.
America.
We'll see you again.
See you next Tuesday.